All right, if you're just joining us, my name is Jeff Hoagland. I'm joined here by my co-commentator, Nick Shirillo. Welcome to the second round of the Hoaglandia Open. We are going to head on down into the feature match area. We'll be watching Boo Shoes versus Green Lightning, and it will be Jeskai Control versus some Grixis Aggro, or Red-Black Aggro, it looks like here on Boo Shoes' side. This is an open deck list tournament, so these players are aware of the matchups that they are playing, and pretty good hands on both sides of the table, honestly.
Thoughtseize.
Thoughtseize.
Very strong.
So, there's a lot of directions you could go with this Thoughtseize. How do you feel about taking the threat? I feel
I
like
think that's good.
Yeah, I feel like if there was only one Wrath of God, I'd be inclined to take the Wrath of God, but because you generally speaking, with a disruption spell like Thoughtseize, you're inclined to take the thing that's not like the others, right?
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. I was looking at his hand, and the Wrath of God is very pretty, and I thought it was also lands. So, with that being said, I think taking the threat's good because what you're gonna try to do here as the Rakdos player is sort of hope that they can't do anything besides wiping your board, and then beat them with Croaks of Recursion.
And then it's kind of fitting here as I pull up the hideous Wrath of God from actual Amonkhet masterpieces. How glad are you that this isn't the Wrath of God that we actually have on Arena?
I played a lot of Yu-Gi-Oh growing up, and that Wrath of God reminded me of my youth.
So we see Yorion the Sky Nomad going to hand tier for Green Lightning.
Yep, we're gonna play this cool dinosaur. I expect it to get wrathed, and then the real question will be: is there something that can pressure the Sarkon? And if there's not,
so something that's kind of interesting about this Yorion list is it's not just really do nothing Jeskai control like I would say a lot of these decks actually have both Chandra Awakened Inferno and Sarkon the Master List there as ways to actually end the game with some Planeswalkers.
Yeah, Sarkon's been very impressive for me. Just if you have, I assume there's Narset in here also. You can that's a Field of the Dead. That's just a card that I guess we play in all our decks now. That is very good against Rotting Regisaur.
Sarkon the Master List, a card that incidentally gets a lot better with the banning of Teferi Time Raveler, right? Like normally these things that make tokens were kind of a liability or worse when your opponent would just like get rid of it for free essentially, but now that that's a real extra threat, it steps up a bit.
Yeah, for sure.
Something kind of funny here, and I think we more see this addition to Green Lightning's Jeskai deck because they're a Yorion deck more than anything, as there are 2 copies of that Field of the Dead that Nick commented on, and when like you have to fill out 80 cards worth of land, you're going to incidentally meet Field of the Dead's requirement anyways, right?
Yeah, for sure.
So you see a new card on the top there, new to anybody that's only been playing on Arena, in Earthshaker Kenra, kind of an aggressive staple in the formats that it's been played in, as far as standard legality at least.
Yeah, Earthshaker Kenra, especially if you're milling it over with Myotriton or this Ashiok, it's basically just another thing like Croaksa that you're basically drawing extra cards as an aggro deck.
Yep.
Can come back as a 4/4, make something big, unable to block, and then just slam in with the team. How much mana? One short. The one short from being able to play both Kenras, which would actually just have been lethal here.
Correct. Yep. And now I think because you don't have lethal, you probably kill. Oh, we're not killing the Sarkon. That's interesting. Ooh, a little bit of a misstep there.
So the problem is you can't because
there's a token.
Has the token, yeah, in reserve.
There's the Castle of Arvindel.
The Knights. Big fan of the Knights.
Hiding out there in the mana. Those tricky lands, Bob. Those tricky
They'll
lands.
Get you. This is Arena. The lands were just supposed to make mana. I'm not supposed to think about it.
We're kind of a real non-rotating format, huh? I would assume Pioneer Masters this fall is going to reintroduce things like Shambling Vent and Hissing Quagmire, and then You know, there's going to be a lot of things to
Lumbering
keep track
Falls
of.
is my baby. I love me a Lumbering Falls.
And there's a real chance, I think cards like Raging Ravine are probably too good to reprint through standard, but I honestly wouldn't be surprised if like Celestial Colonnade and Raging Ravine potentially came to historic via anthology at some point.
Oh, for sure. For sure.
And at this point, it feels like the door is closing on Bushud's side of the table relatively quickly.
Yeah, it's close, right? Bushish can actually get him to 2 here
Oh yeah, we're
with,
actually we're actually just done, right? Because they're
but yeah, the Flyers. I thought earlier in this game that Green Lightning was being too aggressive with the Sarkon, but I think actually they were really smart about managing this game and realizing they weren't going to be able to effectively one for one everything that Bushu's had to offer.
yep. And
And
I think we kind of saw Boo's Shoes acknowledge that they were going to potentially be in a position to grind when they took that Teferi, right? Like taking the Teferi instead of the Wrath of God is kind of like, okay, with my Croxes and my other things, I can go toe to toe with your sweepers, and that's not a big deal. So Green Lightning correctly identifying that they needed to take an aggressive role there.
yeah, but so then the question going into this next game, um, Green Lightning only has 2 Sarkons in the 80 card deck.
Yep.
So if they don't draw the Sarkons, there may be a real problem with them having enough closing pressure against all of these recursive threats.
Yep. And we see something kind of interesting on both sides of the table. We have it looks like our red black aggro player taking out their Croxes as a grindy element, but our Jeskai control player notably left extra sweepers in their sideboard, did not bring in all of them.
Yeah, that's interesting, right? I think
Like that's not what I would expect either player to do, right? Like if I'm on the Jeskai side, I feel like I'd want all my sweepers, and if I'm on the red black side, I'd feel like I'd want my Croxes. I'm interested to see how this game plays out with the decisions that they've made.
yeah, I would think that cutting the Croxa speaks to you actually think you want to be going farther underneath your opponent, and you're afraid they're going to bring in Graveyard Hate. And if
Sure.
you're only getting the front half of Croxa, I just don't think it's a very
Yep.
good card.
And actually, like we've talked about, so this tournament's a little bit different than playing on like the ladder, for instance, because the deck lists are heads up. So like if you're Boost Shoes,
Right.
you know that there's Grafdigger's cages, and we actually saw Boost Shoes. They bottomed it here, but they boarded in a braid, right?
Mm-hmm.
And notable here, we see that Earthshaker Kenra in the hand for Boost Shoes. The way Earthshaker Kenra's Embalm, or Eternalize, sorry, is templated, it doesn't care about Grafdigger's cage.
I feel like there was a time in Modern where nothing cared about Grafdigger's Cage. You'd like put it in your deck for all these matchups and it just wouldn't ever do anything. And I feel like there's a bit of that happening right now where the library part is pretty relevant, but a lot of the graveyard stuff just doesn't. Oh, well, that's a sweeper.
Yep. So we had maybe I think a little bit of a misclick on Green Lightning side of the board. They played the castle on 2, and I think they played the castle on 2 thinking they could Scorching Dragonfire. Oh no. Just moments before the disaster here. Electing to not play around Clarion on Bushu's side, and we're gonna Clarion my wayward son.
Yeah. That's gonna be rough. So there were options to maybe play around that, right? I think that Bushu's could have held up the activation. Oh, all right. We're back. Actually, never mind. There's nothing counts there. So there was an ability to hold up the activation here on the night.
Yeah, and honestly, holding up the activation on the night would have been really appealing too, because Green Lightning had Scorching Dragonfire, so like you're guaranteed to be able to protect it against that. And I feel like we're sliding into garbage time at this point.
Oh yeah, I think at this point it doesn't, like, I don't know. Stuff's happening. We're taking up this Teferi. I'm not. Yeah. We're putting a Sky Noodle in our hand.
A Sky Noodle. That's great.
It's Sky Noodle. We got this castle, so you can't even. Oh.
So
this could.
Phoenix of the Ash doesn't even really do anything, right? We got Scorching Dragonfire. That's heads up on the Lightning side of the board.
I'm trying to have hope, but I think hope dies against Field of the Dead. So
So they've only got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, I guess Field of the Dead's land number 6. That's going to be active soon. Honestly, I almost feel like the Field of the Dead's irrelevant to this game.
Yeah, I don't think it really matters in this match.
I feel like it's going to be another thing that happens that like kind of kills Boo's shoes a little bit faster, but I don't think it's going to be critical to like why the game is ending.
Yeah, because what's going to happen here is I think Boo Shoes is correct in not attacking the Teferi, because like card advantage doesn't really matter at this point. But I think what that also means is they're just going to get ground out. Like the Elspeth Conquer's Death is a clean kill on this Phoenix Navash.
And we have Ramonap rune. There are 2 copies of Ramonap runes on Bushu's side of the table. So like maybe your hope is like you're gonna run off 2 lands and like eternalize this Kenra and then maybe burn them out with Ramonap. But yeah, your rotting registers here are just like really embarrassing against these castles and Field of the Deads and stuff like that, right?
All right, Bushu does not believe in himself, and if he does not believe in himself,
Bushu doesn't believe in garbage time. We appreciate all the people that are not gonna submit us to that. And maybe thinking about how that game played out, I wonder if maybe the rotting registers are what are supposed to come out there, knowing that your opponent has tokens and Field of the Dead and Castle and stuff like that. And perhaps you're supposed to keep the Croxas and just try and fight through the cages.
I'm not sure, because if they had opened the Regisaur, right, and the only early interaction was all 3 damage based, like you probably would have just won the game.
Sure. So
right?
it's just like
if you're
it's
trying
worth
to pull down and get underneath stuff, especially on the play. Maybe you're just trying to jam your 7/6s and hope they're good enough, and they weren't good when they came off the top later. But I'm pretty sure their entire deck was bad off the top later. I don't think it actually mattered.
Sounds good. All right, so we are going to, again, we try to keep as